Okay, so we have made our first row of rectangles and they lean to the right, as you can see. And we're now going to move on to our second set of rectangles, and that is this section here. So this is number 1, 2, 3 and so on. And they, as you can see, lean to the left. So that's what creates this fantastic kind of basket weave entrelac effect. Something to show you here, if you remember, we completed our first section of rectangles with this triangle at the edge, and we started it with this triangle at this edge. If you have a look at our second section of rectangles, you will see they start right at the edge and they finish right at the edge. So there's no need for starting or finishing starting or finishing triangles on this one. It is rectangles all the way. So let's have a look at how to make those. Right, we are starting this time on the right side of the work. We're not starting from the purl side. And we're working with those 8 stitches again, just as we did with these rectangles. So we've got to do some picking up of stitches. Now, I've already got 1 on my right-hand needle here, so I only need to pick up 7 along this edge. And this time I'm picking them up knit-wise, not purl-wise, but I'm still going to work it in the same way as I did before. This is how I seem to find it easier to pick up a knit. So I've just put my left needle through my first place where I'm going to pick up a stitch, and I am literally just going to knit it. Okay, so I know that's nice and secure, and I've got 2 on there, and I'm just going to go down a sort of every other sort of stitch and pick one up. And as I said to you when I was picking up for the rectangles from the purl side, it's entirely plausible that I may have to go back and redo this, because this is what strikes fear into the heart of me, picking up stitches. Who knew? This and spiders. Gosh, if there was any way of combining those 2 things, I would not be able to function. 5, 6. Yes, that's okay. That's worked out okay. I'm ridiculously proud of myself. And here we go. 7. And I'll put one last one in there. This yarn, I know I keep saying it, but goodness me, I absolutely adore it. And the needles, I cannot even. Anyway, right, so I've picked up, in total we've got 8 stitches on our needle. I've picked up 7 more to join the one we had left. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and we are ready to start our next rectangle. So what we're going to do here, we've got a slightly different decrease happening. We were purling 2 together, if you remember, to bring in those edge stitches, but we're working on the right side here, so that's going to work slightly differently. Let me show you. So we've picked up our stitches. We're going to turn to the purl side and just purl 8. Okay, so our purl side is our straightforward side this time. We don't do anything fancy on the purl side. We just purl 8 each and every time. Okay. So that's our first purl side done. Now what we're going to do is turn back to the knit side, and this is where the fun starts. So we knit 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Now I'm going to stop there, because if you recall, what we did is we worked in the next sort of lot of stitches to create that kind of woven effect, and we worked over that gap. So we knew that when we got to the last one, we had to do something with the one over the gap. So we're going to do the same that same principle this time, but on the right side we're working with a different stitch, not a purl 2 together, but a slip 1, knit 1, pass, slip stitch over. So let me just show you how to do that. So I have knit 7, 2, 4, 6, 7. I'm going to slip my next stitch as if to knit. So just put my needle in as if I'm going to knit it, but not wrap any yarn. Just slip it from the left to the right. I'm going to knit the next stitch, and then I'm going to pick the one that I slipped up and put it over the top of that slipped stitch. Okay, and what it's done is it's pulled one of the stitches across from our next section and worked it into our rectangle to keep that weaving happening. Let's just do one more repeat of that and then we can whiz across. So as I said to you before, the purl side is the boring regular. We don't do anything different on the purl side, so we're just purling 8 every single time on this side. Okay, and so when we go back to the knit side, that's when we have to do something a bit different. So knit 7, three, 4, look at that pink coming in, isn't it beautiful? 5, 6, 7. And let me just stop and look at that. You'll see I'm now ready to bridge that gap between the two. So I'm going to slip one as if to knit. I'm going to knit the next one and pass that slip stitch over. Don't forget that bit. Okay, as that leaves me with 8 again. So I'm just going to work that repeat all the way until all of those stitches are worked in. So it's sort of 8 times in total. And I'm going to finish that and we'll get to starting the next one. So I'll quickly do that and see you in a minute. Right, I'm on my last knit row now. 4, 5, 6, 7, slip 1, knit 1, pass slip stitch over. So let's just stop and look at that. So you can see, sorry, it's that way on. You can see we've made a left-leaning rectangle there, and it works really beautifully, comes all the way up to the edge. We don't need to do any triangles or anything like that. And we are now positioned to start our next left-leaning rectangle coming out of this section here. What we're going to do now is we're going to pick up 8 stitches again, and we are going to pick up 8 stitches because these 8 stitches that we've got on our needle here are now out of use. We're not doing anything else with them. We're not working them in or anything. So we need to start from scratch, and that means picking 8 stitches up along this rectangle edge. So let's just do that, and then off we go again. So this one looks a lot bigger to me, but it isn't. It isn't. See how scared I am. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I am literally just going into every other end here. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, now let's 2, 4, 6, and 8. We need to sort of ignore those. What we're now going to do is we're going to just repeat what we've just done, but on these stitches here. Okay, ignoring the first 8, they'll sort of start to separate as we work quite naturally. So just the first 8 stitches. So as before, our purl side row is the regular purling of 8 stitches. Nothing fancy happening there at all. 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Let me just double check I've done that correctly. 2, 4, 6, 7. Whoops, 8. There we go. And now I'll turn to the right side again. And this is when we're going to start bridging that gap with that knit 1, slip 1. Sorry, slip 1, knit 1, pass slip stitch over. Let's just do one of those. And then this should all look very familiar. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And now I'm going to slip 1, knit 1, pass slip stitch over. Okay, so that is exactly what we've just been doing, but starting out of the side of a rectangle rather than starting out of the side of the triangle as we did at the beginning. So that's all you're going to do now all the way along, just picking up out of the edge of the rectangles, doing that little repeat of the purling and then the knitting and then slip one, knit one, pass slip stitch over, all the way along. So I'm going to complete my row and we'll see what that looks like at the end. Right, I finished my part 3, which is the second row of rectangles, and you can see they're leaning to the left, and they start, as I said before, right over at this edge, and they finish right over at this edge. Now, of course, you're going to have an awful lot more than me, but when you get to this point, you should have beginning triangles, right leaning rectangles, and left leaning rectangles, and that is sort of all you need to know really about the entrelac side of things. What you need to do now is you need to complete section 2, which is this first row of rectangles again. So you need another right leaning, let me show you, another right leaning section of rectangles. So let's have a look on my other little sample piece here. So here's my beginning my beginning triangles. Here's my first section of right leaning rectangles. Here's my section of left leaning rectangles. And what you now need to do is this second section of right leaning rectangles, okay? And what that means, of course, is that you're going to complete, your pattern tells you to complete part 2 once more. And part 2 includes that beginning and end triangle as well as those right leaning rectangles, okay? So if you just pop off and do that, and I will do the same on my partially worked sample here, and then we can move on after that to part 4.